what I want to talk about are fundamentals in our massage and in our life. And I think I've mentioned it before, but I am a sports fan. We take something like basketball, for example. Okay, who might like the best players be right now? Someone like LeBron James. Okay, after every game, in between each game, at the start of the day, what do these players do? They shoot the ball. They shoot hoops. What do they do in their off season? They refine, they practice, they never stop doing those kinds of things, and these are like the greatest players ever. And this is the secret to their greatness, is that they are always working on their fundamentals. They're not just taking it for granted that says, I've been doing this for, in the case of someone like LeBron James, I mean, professionally, even he's getting on what, like 18 years or something like that. It's not time to take his foot off the throttle or anything like that. If anything, it's time to double down. And similarly here, so like Anastasia, you talk about some of the things that are hard for you, your own habits to break or your attachments or something like that. And again, like working on our fundamentals is one of the great ways to break those habits, to break those attachments, to elevate as people and really bring more of whatever it is that we want in our life. And certainly it's also true as it relates to becoming more of an expert and master of our craft. So I want to encourage you and talk about it a little bit more and just really encourage you to think about it. And first of all, like it's a mindset thing. It is an energy and an attitude thing that says, rather than like, as I get more experience, as I get better at this, that means I don't have to think about my fundamentals, but actually the more experience you gain, the more important it is to work on those fundamentals. And the way to continue to evolve, I think, in the healthiest and best ways is doing that kind of work on a regular basis. And I was alluding to it when I actually, came with that yes result of having COVID. I don't know, previously how much all the work I've done before in the last 20, 25 years on my health and well-being and practice helped me to have a minor case of it. But I certainly know how it helped me when I really needed to have my mind in the right place and just be someone who's helping my body to do the work it needs to do to make this as painless as possible. All that work on fundamentals for all those years played a huge role in these last few days of having that positive COVID test. And that's just one of the great benefits of when you really need to raise your game because you've worked on your fundamentals, you have the capacity to do so. I love the story, Jean, that you shared of it was your sister, right? And her daughter. And, I don't know her. And of course, in any kind of way, you just would imagine that for her to have the insight and fortitude and strength to process and heal and then dedicate her part of her life and make something so beautiful for her daughter directly related to work that she had done before her daughter passed and then during those first few years when she was grieving and learning and figuring it out. And every moment and every day as it becomes, and we should embrace, okay, what are my fundamentals? Let's get clear on it. And let's make sure that we are working on them and maybe even adding to them and refining them and things of that nature. And you keep doing that core work. And that's how we grow in just such a healthy and really in a guaranteed kind of way. It's going to happen. So, in Thai massage and in my system, we talk about the 4 pillars. Your fundamentals of Thai massage are really there. And I often say, when people come and train in person and we're just there for a few days, there's nothing you really ever have to memorize except for the 4 pillars. These 4 things that I would love for you to memorize. But now that we are a group that gets to meet regularly like this and we're coming together as a community and we have, essentially we're doing this for life. I'm doing it now. as long as I'm healthy and able to talk, I'll be here meeting with all of you, So it's like to encourage you to really memorize, know the fundamentals of the 4 pillars, and then how do I embody that? How do I keep working with them? And what's that going to keep bringing to me? And just really engage with it. So what they are: meditation and loving kindness and compassion. That's the first pillar. Number 2, stances. Number 3, rocking. And number 4, touch, which is really defined by, that one sentence of how slow can you go, how high can you fly, as our approach to really having a high level of massage, the secret, as I call it, to giving an amazing massage. So yeah, so Jean, you were talking about you're not really able to give it on a lot of people right now, but what a great time then to really go deep with the fundamentals and embody them and know them and feel them, and even ask yourself, like, how can I bring these into other parts of my life, which we should all be doing, but especially if you're not having an opportunity to practice on other people, there's lots of opportunity to bring those fundamentals into your life. Like the basketball player analogy, they're not playing a game. They just go out to the basketball court and then they start shooting hoops. They have their tool, their ball, and they start shooting. In our case, if we want to practice those 4 pillars without having someone else to practice on, what are ways that we can do that? Well, certainly when it comes to meditation and loving kindness and compassion kind of practices, it's to meditate. That would be number 1, probably. Now, if you happen to be someone who has a hard time with like sitting and meditating, then maybe it's going for a walk in a mindful kind of way, like just even in your neighborhood, if you happen to live in an urban environment, or out in the woods, if that's accessible to you, or any number of activities where you can really make a conscious choice to pay attention to yourself and to what's around you. And then, that love and that loving kindness and that compassion. So what are practices that you can do to help know yourself that way? And, organically and naturally, meditation brings about that realization. It's really important. It's really important, in my opinion, to have a daily practice. So if you were writing down fundamentals, what are the fundamentals that I have that I want to make sure I continue to foster or work on and develop? If you don't have, or if it's a struggle or anything like that, to have a meditation practice in some kind of way, a self-love practice in some kind of way, now's as great a time as any to set an intention and say, like, okay, well, I'm intending to have that daily practice. I'm intending to commit to it. And then you're changing your energy around it. And maybe you're making yourself more available to the kind of discipline that's often needed to have that kind of practice. And actually also in the self-love kind of practice, that's a big part of why I've already been talking to everyone about having a gratitude journal and a journal where you write down things you're grateful for and things that you're proud of. And then last week we added setting intention. So these are those same kind of fundamentals that will benefit you as you practice and as you live your life. And to do it with kindness for ourselves. As someone who has struggled a lot over the years to have a daily practice and then get kind of hard on myself when it's like, oh, it's not a day anymore, it's a month since the last time I meditated, how did that happen, or something like that. Realizing, as soon as possible that doesn't help. So what helps when you notice that you're kind of having that energy towards yourself, in my opinion, for the longest time, it was really just my breath. Notice the next breath and just breathe, and then I can let go of the thought that's kind of snagged me and kind of give it space to move along. Now that I'm becoming really much more committed to the gratitude and things that I'm proud of kind of practices, like that's another really great thing that if you're finding yourself really full of judgment or something like that, or self-critical of yourself, then that's another great practice that you can do. And then really the other thing is mindfulness, to understand that meditation doesn't end when you get up off the pillow or finish your walk or whatever it is. Ideally, we're trying to fill the gaps of every moment of our day, and just setting an intention that that's how we want to be through life. Then when the hard times or the discouraging energy, all that kind of stuff comes up, we can feel it. We can really know that we're experiencing it, and we listen to it, but even sometimes get swept up in it, but hopefully not for too long, only for a moment or two, and then we can catch ourselves and kind of come back. And so those fundamental practices help on all those levels. And to some degree, when you are seeing yourself getting swept up a lot and kind of hard to practice, or the habits that you're trying to break, you're just not breaking them, another offering would be to notice that, be honest with yourself and say, like, okay, this is happening. Because then with that kind of knowledge comes the idea that says, okay, well, what other fundamentals can I make a part of my life? If I do that, it makes it easier and more of a possibility to shift, really, and change those habits and change those patterns. Because really, at the end of the day, when you're setting your fundamentals and when you're making your choice to do those healthy fundamental practices, and then you really add more of them to your life, it is working on that level of reprogramming the mind. Like that, those habits that have become habits, at first they were just something that you did once or did twice, and then you did a third time. And that's just, when you consider how many trillions of bits of information are being processed and assimilated every second in our body, if our body didn't have some habitual ways of doing things, then how could it manage everything that it has to do all the time? So that's just the way we're designed. And it applies to ideas, and it applies to things on that level too. But that also means, and there's just been a lot of research now. There was just a kind of, everybody thought as mainstream thinking that therefore how you program yourself when you were young, that's it, you're kind of set for life. But now with all the research being done on neuroplasticity and everything, we recognize, and we certainly know that no, we can actually change those habits, but they do get really well ingrained, and especially if they've been your habits for a long time. To some degree, it's not even being so concerned about the goal of changing the habit. It's about enjoying the journey. It's about being on the journey, and setting the fundamentals, and just really consistently coming back to your fundamentals is how you embrace the journey. It's also how you embrace the whole idea of how slow can you go, how high can you fly, as a way of life. So we talk about it, applying it in a massage is, really having that intention, having that idea of what does it mean to be gradual in everything that I do. Applying it into the bigger picture of life, I think, really is about setting fundamentals and being really focused on the journey. And then when you get to the destination, then really, sure, enjoy the destination. Wow, I no longer feel attached to watching TV for an hour anymore, or something like that. It naturally, when you set the fundamentals, those things that you set as the habits you want to break, really they dissolve. They will dissolve on their own, especially if you just commit yourself to doing that newer kind of practice for a month or something like that. Then things really start to change. So as far as stances go, again, like, you don't need someone to practice your stances. And practicing those stances regularly help you to become so much more aware of yourself in space and your body. And when you do have someone to massage and you're really aware of your stances, then you really start to become aware of like, wow, an inch here and an inch there make all the difference in the world for how you can feel and how you can feel better and better and better in giving the massage. So wherever you're at in your practice of really setting these fundamentals, it is to know, okay, the first one was meditation and metta, which we've just been talking about for quite a while. The second one is stances, and how can I become more aware of my stances when I'm practicing, whether I'm on my own or whether I'm massaging someone, and being aware of that distance. And it's really true that, it's like something I say in class is like stances 101 is just knowing I'm going to pick this stance because I feel solid in my body and I can use my whole body to help give the technique that I'm trying to give. Stances 201 is what else around distance and around just slight little changes in my angles and in how I bend my back versus straighten my back versus all these kind of things, like when you're in a warrior stance and you're doing something like rolling pin, at the start of the massage. Is my knee that's on the ground really right above my hip, or is it back a little bit? And we want it to be back a little bit to be more like distributing the weight throughout our body. And if you notice your hip or your back tensing up, the way you learn that I need to move it back a little bit is because your body's not comfortable. And so you make that choice whenever you feel that discomfort in your massage to say, hey, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. It might be the greatest rolling pin in the world. They may be in the middle of the biggest, oh yeah, that's so good. But if you're in pain, it's worth stopping as soon as you can and readjust, So, and then even beyond that, as you keep practicing, you get ideas in your mind that are not just waiting for something to feel uncomfortable in your body, but you'll get ideas that say, if I move a little bit, I'm going to feel even better. This is going to feel like, wow, so releasing in my back, easy in my body. I used to sweat so much when I give a massage, and now I'm just cool as can be, sort of thing. It's like, so you listen to that and you keep refining and you keep going with it. So that's how it works with stances and with rocking as well. So, with rocking, it's really all about making sure that you rock first, touch second. And that's become really clear to me in the last few months, that to be aware that, to want to make sure that you're using your whole body, that everything comes from your core, is that's the only thing you have to remember. That if you start moving forward before you start making contact, guaranteed you are using your whole body to help you. You're going to create leverage, and you're going to always make sure that everything you're doing is coming from that place of leverage. And also, something I say about rocking is that it's all about helping to facilitate a flow of energy in the massage. So you're naturally helping to facilitate that kind of flow. Now, in your everyday life, stances are really important. How it becomes things like posture. It becomes things like doing the dishes, picking up my child, or making a choice not to pick up my child, or things like that. I remember, it was a hard choice for me at like 3 years old to basically say to my daughter, like we'd be out on a walk or something like that. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to pick you up anymore. You're too big for me. It's not like I can't physically do it, but I also know the price I'll pay if I do it. Like things like that were these kind of tough choices that I recognize, though, that for the overall health of my body, this is the kind of choice I would want to make. When I lift something up, make sure I bend my knees and I use my whole body, something like that. So stances are really important, and you can absolutely use the knowledge gained in your massage to help you have better body mechanics in other things that you do in your life. And then that also will help you to have more awareness when you're actually giving the massage. Same thing with rocking. When it's available to you, just make sure everything comes from your core first and not from your extremities. And then, touch. So we also talked about touch here, and just, easing in to everything that you do. So yes, I'm a big fan of making that a life philosophy. And there's lots of times where, like for me, for example, when I get triggered and I'm in a conversation with someone, um, I would potentially stop talking about it, and if it takes me a minute to realize what I want to say next and know that I'm being triggered, great, it takes me a minute. If it takes me a day, it takes me a day, you know. It's like, but it really is like that slowing down. I'm making a choice to slow down, especially in pivotal moments and key moments, to make sure that the way that I'm going through life, the way I'm having a conversation or anything like that, um, I'm present. I'm aware. I mean, that's the whole idea of how slow can you go, how high can you fly. It's basically taking the first pillar of meditation and turning it into a massage. So similarly, I'm taking that first pillar of mindfulness and meditation and loving kindness and turning it into a life practice and asking myself, well, how can I and where does that come in handy as I live my life? And truly, honestly, like if you just be focused and realize like I'm just in the journey. This is where my journey is taking me right now. It's going to be amazing. Think about the Karate Kid movie, or more recently, the Cobra Kai. But if you think back, one of the most famous scenes, right, famous parts of the Karate Kid is that when Mr. Miyagi first agrees to have Daniel be his student and says like, the deal is whatever I say you have to do fundamentally. And what does he have him do for, I mean, it's a movie. It could have easily been months in real life. Wax on, wax off, paint the fence, wash the car, all of these things, fundamentals. He had him practice those fundamentals, not even telling him that he was learning karate at the time. But then when he actually said, okay, show me, paint the fence, and, Daniel was all angry. He's like, I thought I was coming to learn karate. Instead, I'm here to be your slave or something like that. And then he's like, okay, you know, show me, paint the fence, show me, wax on, wax off, whatever. And all of a sudden, he's got all the karate moves that he could possibly ever need from having done that again and again and again. And really, it's the same thing. I get the real desire, like I want to practice on other people, of course, but you got to do it in the time that's right. But in the meanwhile, work on the fundamentals. And when you actually get the chance to practice on that person, you're going to be just blown away by what you're able to offer, even if you didn't get a chance to practice the whole massage or do moves and stuff like that. Just work on the fundamentals. It's transformative.